소리가 안 들리네.
안 들리세요?
이제 들려.
아, 네.
It's essentially in Mobile Legends.
Oh my god, it's a mobile event.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Right.
Hello, everybody. It is 6 o'clock. Did somebody tell me if they hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you, thank you. All right, you guys ready to begin? If possible, may I ask you to turn on your camera, just so I know who I'm speaking with, who's going to spend the next hour with me. All right, so my name is Joseph Esquire Shin. I am the legendary Scoutmaster Shin of Koreatown. I am the scoutmaster for a local scout troop for the last 30 years. And today I'd like to talk to you guys about the Saigu riots. Now, okay, Jongyu, it's okay. You can't turn on your camera, it's all right. Okay, so I was asked to talk about Saigu, just a show of hands. Who's ever heard of Saigu? Audrey has heard of Saigu. Lauren, Donggun. Anybody else? Okay. So Saigu in Korean, it's very interesting. Korean people like to name events using the date, like Yu-Gi-Oh, 하루 15일, Saigu. Saigu means April 29. Now, April 29 is the day I was reborn as a Korean. I was born again as a Korean person on that day. And today I'd like to share my story on the significance of Saigu. Saigu happened in Koreatown, 1992, before you guys were born. How many of you know that Koreatown burned down in 1992? Okay. Lois. Lauren. Okay, so a couple of you know that. So when I say Koreatown burned down, have you ever seen war movies where like aliens are attacking and they're attacking LA and LA's on fire? Well, that's what LA looked like. Over 1,000 buildings burned, and many of them burned in K-Town. It was the LA riots, and we called that Saigu. Now, it happened in 1992. I was in college. I was a young guy, and there was a couple things that happened in Southern California. One, there were a lot of liquor stores and mini markets owned by Korean people. And these markets were in the low income Black areas. And a lot of the Korean owned liquor stores would get robbed, burglarized every single day practically. And just about everybody walking in the store was shoplifting. And most of those people working down in South Central and Watts and all that area have been robbed by gunpoint on many occasions. I had friends whose fathers were robbed at gunpoint, and they said, put your hands together like this and put it on top of your head. So he did. And then they got the gun and they smashed all of his fingers and broke all of his fingers. Guys have been stabbed, they've been shot. Many Korean owners were killed. And so it was hard to go to work, but they had to make a living for their family. And the shop owners were getting to a point where they're kind of fed up with this. You know, we're getting sick and tired of being robbed every single day, having our lives threatened. And one day, a Korean shop owner named Sunja Do shot a 14-year-old Black girl who was supposedly stealing an orange juice bottle in the back of the head. And Black people were already upset that Korean people come into their community and set up these markets and rip them off. They're saying the prices are so expensive and that Korean people are being very rude to them and very racist. But it was racist tensions between the Black and the Korean. And then at the same time, a Black motorist got pulled over while he was speeding and on drugs. And in the middle of the night, he was pulled out of his vehicle and beaten by a bunch of cops that happened to be white. And that was videotaped. And back then, everybody didn't walk around with a cell phone that could videotape. Somebody happened to have a VHS recorder, a big one, and recorded it from across the street. And it showed this black motorist practically being killed by these cops, repeatedly being beaten with their sticks, the nightsticks, in the head and all over the body. And this ultimately went to trial. And these cops were put on trial for illegally beating a motorist. But during the trial, these white cops were found not guilty. And that made the black community so upset that they went into the streets and started burning everything. They started at Florence and Normandy in South Central LA, Watts. They started they started throwing bricks at every car that was going by that was not black. And then they started blocking off the intersection and pulling drivers out of the vehicles and beating them up in the streets. And there was one famous incident where they pulled out a truck driver. And they beat him, and then they cracked his hood open with bricks. And people were dancing and laughing. And then there's riots. They came up to Koreatown because they're so upset at the Korean American community. And then the Hispanic population joined in and saw an opportunity to loot and steal. And every Korean store from south coming up all the way into Koreatown started to be looted and burned. And Korean shop owners were calling the police. They started coming, but it got so dangerous, the cops ran away. And then the fire department was called because all these buildings are on fire, but they started shooting the fire department. And so they ran away and never came back. So there's hundreds and hundreds of buildings on fire, and they're calling the police and they're calling the fire department, and nobody's coming. And that didn't make any sense. This is America. And at that time, this is modern America, one of the most democratic countries in the world. And we're calling the police and they're not coming. They're like, we can't go there. You guys are on your own. You guys should run away, go home. And the Korean people are like, this is our community. We are home. This is our home. These are our buildings. These are our businesses. What do you mean we're supposed to just abandon our businesses? And these Korean parents that built these businesses were immigrants. Most of them immigrated from Korea. What little money they had, they saved up and started these small businesses, and they grew and grew, and they made money. This is their whole life. If this business burns, they lose everything. So they were putting their life on the line to protect their businesses. But it was so dangerous. And they're calling for help. And they started calling Radio Korea. And Radio Korea was only 2 years old. I think it was 2 years old, or just barely a year old. And they're asking, what do we do? We need help. And so Radio Korea started getting involved in saying, okay, all young people, come out and let's protect Koreatown. Come out with your guns. And we need to forcibly protect our community that we built. So I was a college student, 22 years old. I had been in the military. So I grabbed my military uniform, I grabbed my weapons, and I ran into Koreatown. And for the next 5 days, we had running gun battles in K-Town. And if you Google this, and you go to YouTube and look up Saigo and rooftop Koreatown riots, you're gonna see those gun battles. It was wild. Like carloads of blacks would show up and they just start shooting everybody. And all the young Korean guys would pull up in their cars and then start shooting back. The radio would say, okay, on Western and 6th, they're being attacked. Go there. And then people would just start coming from everywhere to go and protect that corner. And then the radio would get on again. Over on Vermont and 3rd is being attacked. So we get back in the car and we go over there, and we're running around all over Koreatown. And we're going so fast, my car blew up. my engine blew up. And I abandoned my car, and I was on the side of the road, and this white van pulls up, and it's full of young Korean guys, and they all had these white bandanas, and they said, "Get in," and I got in, and they gave me a bandana, and they said, "From today, you're 청년단," and I said, "What's that?" And they said, "We are the Korean youth organization that was formed to protect Koreatown," and they were just formed that year because so many Korean businesses were being robbed, and like store owners, when they're closing the store and they're leaving, they're taking cash. So a lot of bad people knew, you go to the stores and wait till they close, and when they come out, you rob them and you take all their cash. So this vigilante Korean American youth group was formed, and they would go armed and protect all these Korean businesses. When these Korean parents are closing the store, they would stand there with them and escort them home. And this organization went from a couple dozen youth to 1,000 during Saigo. And that was my first introduction to an organized Korean American youth organization that was formed for the betterment to protect our Korean American community. Couple facts. K-Town is the largest Korean population in the world outside of Korea. Korea has the most Koreans in the world, and then K-Town, Los Angeles, and then Southern California. This is the largest Korean community in the world, and it was about to be destroyed. And young people, young guys especially, came out and protected their parents' community, the community that our parents built with their blood, sweat, and tears. And for doing that, some of my brothers died protecting the community. Your generation needs to know about your history. I came to the United States when I was 2 years old. I was made in Korea, and I came to the US when I was 2, and I grew up in the United States in the 70s hating Korean people. I hated that I was Korean. I was embarrassed to be Korean. I hated to hear people speak Korean language around me. I hated being in Koreatown. When my parents took me to church, I went to the parking lot because I didn't want to hear the Korean people talking. And I grew up like that. My friends would come over, and I thought I was white. I grew up in America. All I knew was America. Most of you guys, I'm sure you guys are probably all born here. But you guys are born to a different society now, different America, where Hallyu, where it's popular to be Korean. When I was young, they call me chink, nip, jab, everything in the book. Gook, slant eye, and I say, no, I'm Korean. And they're like, what's that? They never even heard of Korea. They're like, it's all the same, you know? And so I grew up hating who I was because to me, I was American. I didn't see any difference. Well, they did, you know. Obviously, I was deceiving myself that I was different. But I grew up like that. And when Saigu happened is when I really truly became born again as a Korean American. When I realized I'm Korean and I'm going to protect my community. When I graduated high school, it was 1988, and the Seoul Olympics was happening. The Olympics, the Summer Olympics were happening in Korea. And our family would sit down together and we would watch TV back then. You know, TV. We'd watch together. And they would show the Olympians performing. And you know, I'm rooting for America. We're all rooting for America, but my parents, whenever a Korean athlete would come on, they were they're rooting for the Korean and hoping the Korean would win. And one day, some Korean athlete won, and the Korean national anthem came out. And when that national anthem came out, my parents were crying. And when your parents cry, it kind of moves you. And then I started feeling this electricity go down my neck and my back as I heard this Korean national anthem. It was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And from there, when I turned 18 and I became a legal adult, is when I started wondering, who am I? What is this Korean identity that I have, this Korean blood in me that I've denied for so long? And I wanted to know about my heritage. And first thing I said is, okay, I need to learn, I want to know Korean history and a Korean American history. And I looked, and there was nowhere to find Korean American history. There were no books about Korean American history. I thought we came during the 60s and 70s. So there's no books because there is no Korean American history. And so I wanted to learn Korean. And so I enrolled in Saturday school, Hangulakyo. How many, do you guys all enrolled in Hangulakyo before? Well, when I enrolled in Hangulakyo, there was only a couple places that were doing it. So I was 18 years old, 19, going into college, and I'm taking Hangulakyo with second graders. And it was kind of awkward and embarrassing. I was the only college student in there, and it's all a bunch of second graders. And I'm learning kana, dara, and I'm thinking, wow, this is embarrassing. But I wanted to learn. I wanted to know who I was. I wanted to connect with my heritage. So I stuck with it and I learned Korean. And my teacher said, you know, you have such a passion to learn your Korean. Why don't you? The fastest way to watch it, I mean, to learn it is to watch Korean videos. And back then we didn't have Netflix or cable TV. We didn't even have internet. Imagine that. There was no internet. We didn't even have cell phones. Cell phone just came out and it was like this big. It was like a shoebox. And it had a huge antenna on it. And you had to be like super rich to own one. But anyways, so they said rent videos and watch videos. So back then we had video kage. And you go there and you pay $1 or $2 and you get a VHS DVD, a VHS cassette tape, and you watch that. That's how I learned Korean. And then when the riots happened, I said, no, I'm not letting this happen to my community. That's why I got involved. And that changed my life. That radically changed my life. And one thing, the lesson that I got from there. Okay, before I go with the lesson, a couple more facts. The riots started on April 29 and ended May 4. A About 5 days into it, well, about 3 days into the riots, the National Guard, the military came. And they came, and we thought, okay, finally we're going to get relief. Finally, this riot's going to stop. But it didn't stop. They kept burning more buildings. So we're out there trying to put these fires out. We're like, where's the military? The next day we waited. They're here. Where are they? How come they're not in Koreatown? I got so upset. I started driving around. I called my friend and we went to Little Tokyo. And they're all over there. They're in downtown. The military's in downtown. And I'm like, why are you guys here? There's no riots. The riots are happening in K-Town. You guys need to go over there to stop the riots. And they're like, we are told to come and protect K-Town. I mean, Little Tokyo and downtown. That didn't make sense to me. So they told me they're also in Hollywood. So I went to Hollywood and they're protecting Hollywood. Hollywood wasn't burning. And then I went to Beverly Hills. They're protecting Beverly Hills, the white neighborhood. Beverly Hills wasn't burning. It was K-Town that was burning and South Central LA. And they didn't come until 5 days after the riots started. And that didn't make any sense to me. The military came in to stop the riots, but they didn't come to stop the riots. They just went to protect the rich neighborhoods and the affluent neighborhoods, the neighborhoods that have voting power, that are white. And they let Koreatown and the Black community burn. And from there, my anger rose. And from the ashes of my community burning, a fervent desire never to allow this to happen again was seated in my heart and in my soul. And from that moment on, I determined I will organize. I will organize young people. I will train young people to be strong, to never to be outspoken, to never to be told that we are second class, but to build tenacity, to build resilience. You know, I have to say, Korean young people are weak. I'm sorry to say, your generation has gotten weaker. The Korean American youth, your generation, is become so weak. And when things are difficult, your generation tends to put your hand up and just give up and say, it's too hard, instead of trying to find a solution for it. But that's got to change. And from 30 years ago, I started changing that. I started organizing young people. When you take any typical Korean American youth, and you put a couple of them in a room with a couple of Black kids and a couple of Hispanic kids, you could tell there's a difference, right? You guys could tell, honestly, right? The Black kids and the Hispanic kids are vocal. They speak up. They're opinionated. They tell you what they think. The Korean kids, you guys tend to be shadows and just listen to what they're saying. Am I right or am I wrong? I'm not saying all, but Korean culture teaches us to be respectful, not to be strong, opinionated, not to be so vocal, right? To be reserved. So you guys are taught manners. So you guys are polite. You guys don't want to be a nuisance or a bother to other people. Because of that, we are perceived as a weak people. So from 30 years ago, I organized. I wear this shirt. It says Air Scouts. I organized scouting in Koreatown. And for 30 years, I have been training the most powerful young men and women. These kids grow up to be strong, mentally strong, very resilient. Most of them, 99%, go on to West Point, Annapolis, and these military academies. I have fighter pilots. I have a lot of pilots. We're Air Scouts because we teach you to get your pilot's license. But most importantly, we teach you that you're Korean American, that you have two identities. Even if you're born in America, you still, when you write an application in America, they ask you, are you white, black, Hispanic, or Asian? They ask you that. And then they even have a check mark where you check mark if you're Korean. So even though you're born here, you're 100%, you are an American. This is your country. But your face and your blood, unless you're of mixed ethnic, if one of your parents is not Korean, if both of your parents are Korean, you have 100% Korean DNA and 100% Korean blood in your body, even if you're born in America. So Saigo taught me that I'm a Korean American. Yes, I am American. So I served this country. I served in the US military. I gave back to this country because I am an American. I am a good, patriotic American. But I protect also my Korean American community. And I love and have decided to devote my entire life to leading the next generation so that Saigu or anything like that will never happen again. Because if we do not stand up, it will happen again. So the lesson learned for me is that we as Korean Americans, we were insignificant, unimportant people. In 1992, in April 29, Korean American community, we were insignificant, unimportant people. We had no power. That's why the government, the law enforcement said, let it burn. Just let it burn. They're not important enough for us to risk our life dying for. That's ultimately what was shown to us, that it was our fault because Korean people fight each other all the time. How many of you guys go to church or have heard of a church that got big and split and divided and became two, and then those churches split and divide and become two, and they fight each other? Korean people tend to fight each other. That's why we have one of the only countries in the world that split into two and are ready to kill each other today. That's sad that Korean brothers and sisters on the other side of the border, North and South Korea, hate each other and are ready to kill each other and annihilate each other in a second. Because we have this tendency, this horror, to fight each other. But Saigu taught me that we need to organize, that we need to unify. Because during Saigu, during that riots, every young man, every older gentleman that came out armed and risked their life to die for their community did not care about religion or politics. They didn't ask you, are you left or right, Democrat, Republican, gay, straight, Christian, Buddhist, atheist? It didn't matter. It only mattered that we were Korean. That's why we were there. Because we were Korean. And Korean community belonged to us. And so some people died. Some Korean Americans died. Some were wounded. Over 63 people died. Over 2,800 people were injured. It was war. You can't imagine that in Koreatown there was a war. It looked like war. Buildings were on fire. Watch War of the Worlds. Watch those alien invasion movies where, you know, where LA gets attacked, and that's exactly what it looked like. It sounded like war. Guns going off, gun battles. How many of you heard of the meme Rooftop Korean? That's a very famous meme. Yeah. Rooftop Korean is a meme that was created because all the Korean business-owned roofs had Korean people with guns on it. And that's why it's called Rooftop Korean. There's patches, there's stickers, there's cartoons. I'm proud to be a Rooftop Korean. And Korean American history, but it's also the turning point of Korean American history. So your generation, I want you to know what happened in your community not too long ago. And the Korean community has changed. That Cheonyeondan that I became involved in was ultimately disbanded because of politics, because they said it's a bad image that Korean community has a vigilante group. It wasn't a vigilante group, it was a protection group. But there was so much politics involved, it was disbanded. I'm trying to reorganize and revive that since 15 years ago, but I'm getting a lot of fighting and pushback saying, no, don't start that. But I think we need to have armed group. So I have something that we created called Korean American Mutual Assistance Group, KMAG. That's Korean people helping Korean people in time of crisis and difficulty. Now, I want you to look at each other in this classroom. How many of you guys were here for the first lecture about Dosan? Were most of you guys here? Okay. I'm a disciple of Dosan. And you guys heard of the organization Hungsadan, right? That was discussed. Dosan 선생님 created the Hungsadan in the United States over 111 years ago. Okay? 111 years of Korean American history exist, and 99% of Korean Americans do not know one thing about our history. We know Black History Month. We learn Chicano history. We learn Native American history. We learn Chinese American history. We learn Indian. We learn every history, but we don't learn ours in school. They don't teach it in school. Some schools have now started teaching it by mentioning Dosan, An Chang-ho, and a couple other people. And that's maybe about for 1 hour, and that's it. Bang, that's it, done. We've covered Korean American history. It's our history. It's up to us to teach our own history and to be proud of our history and connect with our history. We're connecting with everybody else's history. We celebrate Cinco de Mayo. We celebrate Kwanzaa. We celebrate, well, kind of celebrate Hanukkah. But we don't even know we have Korean American Day. And even if you do know, you don't celebrate it. You don't even remember until it's over, right? How many of you even know when Korean American Day is? Does anybody here know Korean American Day? Raise your hand. Let me see. In here, I see no one person, Matthew. Anybody else? Okay. So look at that. One person knows that there's a day set aside for Korean Americans. It's our holiday. Isn't that shameful? Isn't that a shame that we don't even celebrate our own heritage? I'm a proud member of the Hungsadan, the 113-year-old organization. Dosa Anchangho also helped form the Daeane Kumine, the organization that's putting on this summer school program. How many of you guys have been to that museum on Jefferson near USC? Anybody been there? Okay. That place is your treasure trove of history. That is where your legacy is preserved, your heritage. And that used to also be the provisional government when Japan took over Korea. That's a whole nother story. But Hungsadan, during 113 years ago, when the Hungsadan was formed, there was no country called Korea. Korea was occupied by Japan and colonized, and they were no longer called Koreans. And so they organized, and these people who joined the Hungsadan were freedom fighters that were fighting for Korea's independence. I'm fighting for Korea's independence today because Korea is only half free. The other half is not free yet. They live under the worst dictatorship in the world right now, under the worst form of communism. It's up to your generation, young people. Listen up. You guys are Korean Americans. When I hated who I was, when I hated being Korean, it's like I stood on one leg. I was handicapped. I was disabled because I was American only. But when I realized I was Korean American, then I was able to stand on the other leg. And I became a whole person instead of a half a person. When I became Korean American and realized I have two identities, two countries, two ethnicities, then I became a whole person. And for the first time in my life, I could run and I could do things more than when I was a half a person. I became stronger, twice as strong, twice as powerful. Second generation Korean American. Some of you might be third generation. You guys are strong. You guys are powerful. There is nothing you cannot do. You just haven't been told who you are. You just don't know who you are yet. You haven't connected. Okay, some of you might not have connected with your true identity. When you embrace and hold dear to the fact that you are Korean American, two is better than one. I hope today, from now on, you are so proud that you are a unique human being, because nowhere else on this planet is there a race of people like you that can be called a Korean American. You guys are so powerful. And I want to empower you. But to be empowered, you need to learn from your history. But to learn from your history, you have to know your history. And you have to connect with your history. And that history has to become alive and become part of who you are. Like when the Holy Spirit comes into you and it empowers you, you become alive with a new spirit. Today, we are no longer unimportant. Today, we are no longer insignificant because now we have powers of position. We have multiple Congress people. We have people in the Senate. We have people in the California Assembly. We have people in the local governments, city governments, council members. We are rising. We are emboldened. Everybody look in this room, your brother and sister. They are your brother and sister. It doesn't matter what their belief are, what their political view or religious view is. Okay? If one of you want to do something, you support each other because you're Korean. That's all. Because you're Korean. That's all that matters. If one of you say, I want to become LA mayor, then help them. If one of you say, I want to become a senator, help them. That way, one of you will become the first Korean American president. If you support each other. No more Korean Americans fighting each other. No more division. We're going to unify our community. The community that once burned is stronger now. When you take metal and you burn it and you smash it with a hammer, it gets stronger. Iron, when you smash it with iron, it gets stronger. This community is stronger now. I will speak to you again next Tuesday, same time. Today, I had the presentation prepared, but I had an emergency and I had to come out, so I'm in my van right now. So I wasn't able to show you. But my understanding is that you guys saw some footage about Saigu yesterday, right? I think a footage was shown to you. Does anybody here have any questions that you want to ask me? Any questions about Saigu? Or about what it was like to grow up when it wasn't popular to be Korean? Yes.
Yeah, I want to talk about not the Saigu event itself, but I remember like from yesterday, they were saying that after Saigu there was sort of like a parade during Koreatown, asking
Yes.
for peace.
Yes.
Can you explain about that a bit?
Yes. It was the most amazing thing. It looked like 1 million Korean people came out. Literally everybody came out. And I've never seen that many Korean people in my life before I went to Korea. And it was a march on Olympic Street. And it was Korean community and Black community got together, and even Latino, the Hispanic community got together for unification, unity, and end to the violence, and stating that we need to get along, and that hostile feelings between the races need to be put aside. And it was Korean American communities' opportunity to voice our anger at being marginalized and to being looked at as insignificant people. And so it was a time of healing and a time of releasing our anger. But it was very powerful. There are pictures of it. You can look it up on Google, and it's amazing. And then shortly thereafter, there was a funeral for Edward Kim it was. He was a 18-year-old who was shot in the chest trying to protect a business on 3rd Street. Him and his buddies were shot. The others lived. but you know, it crippled them for the rest of your life. When you get shot by a gun, it destroys your organs, it destroys your muscles. So these young guys, but this funeral was for this Edward, and it happened on Olympic and Normandy at the Seoul International Park. And thousands of young people came out. And we had his funeral, and then there was a road, vehicle procession all the way to Hollywood Forest Lawn. And LA history, they say that was the longest car funeral procession in LA's history, because that literally stretched from K-Town all the way to Hollywood, and it still didn't end. It just kept going. And even though the funeral, the burial was over, cars were still coming in. That's how long it was. That line of cars, so at least 20 miles long. It was amazing. I wish you guys could have witnessed Koreatown coming together and unifying. I witnessed it. I've seen it. I know what my community can do. We can unify. We can. So I want to inspire your generation, because you didn't see it. You didn't witness it. You don't know what you're capable of. But you guys are like a nuclear bomb. You guys have this so much potential. It's just nobody's told you, hey, guess what? You have like the power of a nuclear bomb. And all you guys think is you're like a little popper thing. You know, you throw on the ground, it goes pop. That's all the noise that you're capable of making, or know you can make. Anyways, anybody have any other questions?
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Since like you like talked about the significance of like the unity among like Korean Americans, what do you think like us as like youth Korean Americans, like first or second or third generations can do to like promote those ideas and like make that more significant in our community?
Beautiful question. Your generation has to become the glue in the Korean American community. What do I mean by that? For the last 15 years, I've been going to all the Korean organizations and churches and saying, hey, can we unify our community? Can your organization come together and celebrate the important holidays? You guys know there's Yu-Gi-Oh! That's the Korean War. It celebrates, well, it doesn't celebrate, it commemorates the starting of the Korean War and the Liberation Day, April 15th. It's called Hanbokjeol. And then we have Saigu. And there's all these Korean holidays that are significant. But the thing is, when you go, there's not one Korean American youth, no second generation. There's not even 1.5. I'm a 1.5. It's all first generation older people. And I say, can you guys meet in one place and like show the community that this is an important day? Let's show the second generation that this is an important day, that they should remember it. And they're like, no, that's impossible, because we hate that group and we hate that group and that group hates us and I hate that guy. And I'm like, so it's all about you. What about the community? When is it that that you're more important than the community as a whole? What about the second generation? So they said, well, it'll never happen in my lifetime. So I go around telling your generation, you guys need to unify. And how can you do that? First of all, you take an oath to each other that I promise that I will help my brother and sister. When we get older, I'm not going to get jealous and try to tear you down, but I'm going to support you. If you're going to do something, I will support you. But as a youth, what can you do? Get involved in Korean American youth organizations. And there's great ones out there. But here's the thing, that that bothers me. These great Korean American organizations look at each other as competition. Even they're doing that. Why? Because they're led by the first generation. So they have the mindset of the first generation. You guys need to get into these youth organizations and take it over. You guys need to take ownership of it and work together with each other. There's PAVA, there's Hwarang, there's all these groups, and they don't work together. This is what I'm saying. We are not competitors. We shouldn't compete. We should cooperate with each other. When a Korean American says, I'm running for senator, if 1 million young people work together to lobby, to get the word out, to tell your parents, we need to vote for this person, you guys will move heaven and earth. But there's nobody in the first generation that's unifying your organizations. But I am. And the KNA, 대한민국민회 is, the Hungsadan is, the 3.1 여성 동지회 is, the Dosan Memorial Foundation is, the Gwangbokhae is, the Haninhae is. There are 6 organizations that have joined forces now to support your organizations, the youth. We're meeting together. We're celebrating these Korean American days together. And we're going to invite you guys to participate, to take ownership of it, to put this on social media, to make it explode. So how can you get involved to unify? Get involved in a Korean American youth organization and tell them, hey, can we work with other organizations? So it's not just 100, not 1,000, but 10,000 young Korean Americans working together. Imagine if we do an event and 10,000 Korean American youth show up. Do you think we can move heaven and earth? Yeah. But right now,
100%.
yeah. But right now, what event happens where 1,000 Korean American youth comes? None. What event is going on where there's 100 youth showing up to change their community, to advocate for yourselves, for your community? Not much. It behooves you to get to know me, to get to know Clara Wan, who's putting on this event, to get to know the other speakers, because we're organizing. We're organizing for you guys. We're trying to create a national base, a $1 trillion movement, a national movement where LA, New York, Georgia, Texas, Washington, all these communities organize, and we have a Korean American political, not just political, but a Korean American power base that will support you guys. But you guys have to support yourselves. Get involved in your youth organizations. And then when we reach out to you guys, you tell your directors, hey, Mr. Kim, Mr. Lee, how come we only do our own events by ourselves and treat other organizations as competitors? How come we can't join them and do it together? How come we don't invite other youth organizations? Thank you for that question, Kayleen. Beautiful question. Anybody else? How many of you have heard any other Korean American speak the way I am?
Not a lot.
Not many, huh? For the last couple of years, I've been organizing. And every time I meet youth like you guys, I ask you to get involved. So it wasn't by accident that you happen to be involved in a summer program put on by the KNA. It was by almost like divine purpose that you are here and being exposed to your heritage. Don't let that opportunity go by without getting involved, without getting engaged. Get involved. The next meeting that we talk about will be about, the topic is going to be, who am I? And then after that, I have a dream. And the next two lectures will go into greater detail about what you guys can do and how it's going to benefit your futures. Nobody else has a question? Come on, you guys got to ask some questions, because nobody else is going to give you this kind of powerful history lesson. Nobody's curious about what it was like to be in a gun battle in K-Town in the middle of Olympic on Wilshire and Western. It's crazy.
My dad was in it, so I kind of already know.
Oh, really? Who is that?
Me,
Who?
right here.
Well, what's your name? Let me find you. Keep
Matthew.
talking.
The
Oh, Matthew.
one.
Okay, Matthew. Yeah, I'd like to meet your father.
I can arrange that. Certainly.
Yeah. So how old is your father?
Right now he's only 60.
Oh, really? Okay. So I'm 55, so he's him to me. Yeah, so yeah, if we get together, we'll have stories to tell. Anyways, it's nice to meet you guys. I operate a survival school in the high desert. The reason I do that is because there's going to be another natural disaster that happens. The Koreatown is going to be wiped off the face of the earth, pretty much, or it could be. So I've created a sanctuary up in the high desert. If any of you guys want to learn basic survival skills, knowing a little bit makes the difference between living and dying. And that's the difference between saving your life and your parents' life or your siblings' life. Just knowing simple little things. But most of you in an emergency situation will just die. I'm sorry to say, you'll just die because you have no plan and you've never thought about it and you don't know what to do. And knowledge is power. So if you guys want to learn this kind of stuff, reach out to me. If you guys want to become strong and powerful young men and women, and you guys want to build resilience and tenacity, reach out to me. I meet every Saturday. We go hiking, we go camping, we go shooting, we go kayaking, we do all kinds of stuff. We go rappelling. We're gonna start skydiving. You guys will learn to fly planes. You guys will ride in planes, little Cessna planes. So we do a lot of stuff. If you're into high adventure or if you just like art, my wife is an artist. So reach out to me. I will influence you and I will mentor you. And you should definitely go to the Teane Gumine and check out what they have to show you. Okay? It was nice to meet all of you guys. Let's thank the KNA people. Are they in here? I don't think so. Are they in here?
Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
See you tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you. It was nice to meet you guys. I'll see you guys in here next Thursday. In the meantime, be blessed beyond all measure. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
I see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
수고 많으셨습니다.
예. 너무 좋았어요.
네, 아주 말씀 잘하시고, 네, 아이들에게 많은 자극을 준 것 같아요. 고맙습니다.
그랬으면 좋겠어요. 예. 기회 줘서 너무 감사합니다.
그럼, 틀림없이 그런 것 같습니다. 네.
네.
다음 주,
예,
다음 주 투스데이 만나는 거죠?
네,
제가 디테일한 이메일로 보내드리겠습니다.
오케이. 네, 수고하세요.
바이.
네, 수고하세요.